Tere Qvist. Good afternoon. And now we are going to move towards our panel discussion. And to introduce and moderate the session, I will bring up Nikita Unagata.
Thank you, CJ. Yeah, so I guess you all have figured out by now that this session is going to be a little bit different from the one this morning. All our speakers and panelists are online. They will be joining us from online. So we have people from Korea, from the Netherlands, from Hungary, and Denmark, and they will be joining us via Zoom. So, first of all, I'm really happy to be here to be hosting the session, Smart Steps Towards Smart Lighting, a session that's going to tell you and give you an exclusive preview of the new document that LUCI is producing, the City's Guide to Smart Lighting. Now, we know in LUCI, it's been a while now, over the past few years, smart lighting has given cities a lot of things to think about. It has brought many possibilities, of course, of the different things they can do with light, of different ways of adapting light, different ways of thinking light in the city and the role of light in the city. But it has also brought quite a few challenges. Some of them Janis already spoke about this morning. So many things to consider, data. Some questions also came up in the audience about reconciling the technical aspect with the design aspect and the social aspect. So yeah, how can cities really create their own vision of smart lighting? How can they make decisions that are right for them and their citizens in the long term? How can they find future-proof, supposedly, solutions? So we know that we don't have all the answers, but what we can do is just try to ask the right questions. And that is what we have tried to do with this white paper on smart urban lighting. And that is why we initiated a working group in LUCI with the support of the Smart Space Project, a project funded by Interreg Northwest Europe. And we created a working group of cities who wanted to work together and try to find ways to guide their fellow cities on taking the next steps. And so through this collective document, we have created this white paper, which I will let the author introduce you to. So without further ado, I'm going to let Philip Ross, who is a designer and a researcher and the co-author of this white paper, tell you more about the highlights. And then that will be followed by a panel discussion with the panelists that you saw on screen before, and they will be joining us live after that for question and answers with you, the audience, here as well as online. So, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Philip Ross, and I'm happy to present some background and highlights of the LUCI white paper on smart lighting, called A City's Guide to Smart Lighting, which is a white paper from cities, for cities, about smart lighting. But before, let me introduce myself a bit. So I have a combined background as an industrial design engineer. I've done a PhD research into design of intelligent systems at Eindhoven University of Technology, and am now a practicing artist and designer in the field of intelligent lighting. And my Eindhoven-based agency, Studio Philip Ross, focuses on intelligent lighting design, and I approach that from these different angles. So from a design perspective, from a research perspective, and also from an art perspective, and from combining those, try to find new roles of intelligent lighting in everyday life. And I do that for clients in industry, academics, and government in the Netherlands, but also internationally, Europe, Asia, and the USA. And today I speak to you as the author, the main author of the white paper on smart lighting that I wrote together with LUCI. In this presentation, I will briefly touch upon the process behind the white paper, because that's very special, because it is a joint product of a LUCI collaboration. And I'll touch upon our view on smart lighting, and then the main topics, the questions that we treat, why smart lighting, and if a city wants to take steps into smart lighting, how to. Well, actually the first step of a process is deciding to do a smart paper on smart lighting. And why did LUCI decide? So, well, LUCI noticed that amongst many members there were questions living about, let's say, this emerging phenomenon of smart lighting with new technologies emerging on the market. And this raises questions of, should we step in? What can it bring us? And how can we apply that kind of new technologies for the good of the city, the citizens, and society as a whole? So LUCI decided to step in and create this white paper. Very important in this process of creating the paper are these people on this slide here. First of all, the working group for the white paper that consists of well, these people from all these different cities that bring in their expertise, their experiences, their visions into the process of writing the paper. And I had also the pleasure to work with a panel of international experts that participated in interviews and review of the texts. And of course, Mark, as the general director of LUCI, was very helpful in giving the right input at the right moments. I made a visual representation of the process. So just to shed light on that, it started with desk research, also using this wonderful research of the resource of the LUCI Hub, where you can find all the presentations and documents, news items about smart lighting, and of course supplemented that with research, external research, academic papers, these kinds of things. I conducted a round of interviews with international experts and could dive into the topics really deeply with them. And from those preparatory steps, I distilled a collection of topics and sources and examples, case studies. And I think one of the most important steps in the process were the co-creation sessions with the working group. In these sessions, we prioritized topics, supplemented them, and added the experience of the cities to them, and decided, okay, these should be the ingredients of the white paper. This I turned into a first draft, which was then reviewed by the experts and the working group. And the second draft that came after that was actually sent in a very brief review round to all the LUCI members and associated members. I got really nice, good comments from that, and those I processed in the final white paper that is to be released soon. All right. Now let's talk about smart lighting. So what are we talking about when we talk about smart lighting? Well, actually, that depends on who you're talking with. There tend to be two distinct, different ways of talking about smart lighting. One of those ways is a more technical, operational way. And this focuses on, let's say, that the technologies and processes under the hood. So with quantifiable goals like energy savings or reduced operational costs, a very relevant viewpoint on smart lighting. At the same time, there's also a discourse that's more about social and societal sides of smart lighting. So, for example, the effects it has on people. And this is a more qualitative way of seeing it. So it's more about atmospheres, values, human behavior, rights, human rights, identity, these kind of terms. And actually this is also a very relevant view of smart lighting. What we notice is that these two ways of viewing are often seen separate from each other, while we like to stress that they should be intertwined, and they also need each other to function. So this is a very important basis of the white paper, that we take those two viewpoints and put them together and treat smart lighting from both sides. So with these two viewpoints in mind, we go to the first main question of the white paper, and that is, why smart lighting? Why should we as a city take steps into smart lighting? And now what we find important to stress is that each city is different. So each city will have different answers to this question, because the situation is different, the infrastructure is different, legislation is different, culture is different. So what we did in the white paper is that we offered a number of ingredients to that can help answer the question for yourself. And these ingredients are now scattered across this slide, and I will highlight a few of them in the following. One of those important ingredients is environmental sustainability, and what smart lighting could contribute to that. And for that, I use, by the way, quotes of the white paper, so within those yellow quote signs, as hooks for what I present. And smart lighting is able to contribute to sustainability a lot, actually. And we cite the Diademi case from Italy, where they compared for 1 year pre-regulated dimming schemes, so dimming that's fixed over time, to adaptive, let's say smart dimming, that responds to traffic density and weather conditions. And what they found after 1 year of comparing that is that actually the adaptive dimming saves 40% energy compared to the, let's say, the fixed dimming schemes. And that is really quite substantial savings. And that indicates how smart technologies could contribute to a goal like environmental sustainability, reducing CO2, reducing light pollution. On the other hand, also on the lighting side, smart lighting can contribute really a lot to better lighting for citizens. So we cite, for example, an example from the greater Copenhagen region, where they have a cyclist tunnel lighting that automatically adapts to outdoor light levels, but also gives a really nice atmosphere in the tunnel, making it more pleasant to use, so promoting use of the bikes in that part of the city. And within the Smart Space project, there's a myriad of concepts that's been generated of, for example, here on the right side, how smart lighting could make using of pedestrian crossings more comfortable and safe. And it goes even deeper than that. So it's also about, let's say, a social impact. Public lighting also always has had a large social impact. It changed use of public space very much. Now, if we add these smart technologies, so sensing, so data gathering, light behavior, this influence potentially even grows. And cities also need to choose, in a sense, how they would like to change public space. For example, what kind of traffic do you want to support with your lighting system? What kind of data do you want to gather about what happens in public space? So this actually gives a political layer also to smart lighting. And I interviewed Professor Peter Paul Verbeek. He's an ethics of technology professor, and talked to him about especially this layer of smart lighting. And I'll show you an excerpt of this interview, so to let him explain the relation between politics and smart lighting.
It is quite reasonable now that we see that technologies can have such a profound influence. Of course, we should not do this for every ironing machine. But if we speak about public space, then we speak about our democracy. It's maybe the biggest value we have not discussed yet. But I think democracy in many countries is still a very important value. And I think the whole way in which we are speaking about this now is a way to foster that. And ultimately, the whole idea of citizen ethics as a way to understand guidance ethics and co-design, learning process. These are all elements of a democratization of technology development and implementation and use. So for me, this is also, I mean, these are elements of what a democracy can be in the 21st century. You need to extend it to the realm of technology. And the idea that a democracy basically means that you go out for a vote every now and then and you delegate the power to a small team of people. I mean, it's a totally outdated idea of where democracy is being done in our society.
Yes, and this is so this is a call also to cities to incorporate, let's say, the democratic process in the way they apply smart lighting, actually. So from smart lighting is often a small step towards, let's say, other functionalities as well. So what they call smart city with this broad term. Because once you have the connected infrastructure to the poles, when you have it, it's, let's say, a small step to also include other kinds of sensors, like, for example, air quality sensors or traffic sensors, or you can apply, if the grid can handle it, e-mobility charging. And often smart lighting is the starting point of that. So it is also a door that opens these the road towards these additional functionalities. While keeping in mind, of course, also that issues like the ethical dimensions, privacy, data management, they also grow once the more functionalities are incorporated. But this can also be something to take into account when starting with smart lighting, and it opens up to other functionalities. In the paper, we also talk about why not smart lighting, because smart lighting should not be seen as a goal in itself, but a means to achieve other goals like sustainability, social sustainability, better lighting, etc. And so it has downsides as well as upside, and the balance between the two is, in our view, dependent on how smart lighting is applied and governed. And we highlight a few points of attention in the paper that are important. So, for example, if you don't have the data management or cybersecurity in order, that really might tip the balance to the wrong side. Or when citizens are not engaged in any way, this could also backfire, and we also cite an example of that. So it is a balance, the question why smart lighting, and we invite all cities to make their own decisions on it. Once the aim is to move into smart lighting, then of course the question how to comes knocking on the door. And we gathered experiences from our members, cases, let's say knowledge, and included the most important topics that might help cities in their road towards smart lighting in the paper. And again, these topics are scattered on this slide here, and I'll highlight again a few of them. So, and the first one to tweet here is the building a case. So at one point, if you want to make an investment, of course, you need to build a case around it. And of course, often this case will have a financial element in it. And what often happens is that a payback period case is made. So how long does it take for the investment to be earned back through savings that you do with smart lighting systems? And we cite a few cases, for example, the Diadimi case from Italy and the Sibelga case from Belgium, the Brussels region. And We see there that the payback period cases, they vary, 2 to 3 years to 6 to 8 years. And that's, of course, strongly dependent on the system and the circumstances. For example, energy costs, they vary a lot between countries. But these can be ingredients. And you see that these cases can be made, actually. In Gijón, Spain, they also took operational cost savings by gathering data from other applications like waste management, for example, traffic management, and they built a larger case around that. And we cite different kinds of examples from different cities that can be of inspiration for your own case. And one of the things that was really strong in the working group was the need to be able to explain the importance of laying the foundation for a smart lighting system. So all the groundwork that actually happens behind the scenes, but is so important for a smart lighting project to be successful. So the connectivity, the power, all these kinds of things. And how to do that in a way that you have maximum benefits, in future also. And we have some very nice examples. For example, the Budapest example, that they are in the transition towards LED, but they're already looking ahead towards smart lighting. So even though some things in the power, for example, power metering is not yet ready in the infrastructure, they are already placing NEMA-ready luminaires. So these are luminaires that have a socket for a smart lighting module. And once the infrastructure is ready, they can simply include this socket without opening up the luminaire, so without voiding warranty. And so that's a way that they lower the threshold to go into smart lighting in future. In Helsinki, they are foreseeing the growing need for data. So they are, when they open the ground, they are laying extra protective tubes and microchannel piping for optical fibers already, so that they are ready for, let's say, the growing capacity need in future. And an early adopter, a city like Eindhoven, they already have a smart lighting infrastructure in part of the city, and now they're noticing that they, with relatively less investment, can build a new traffic insights project on top of it. So they did. So actually, these are also examples that show how looking ahead can be very beneficial in smart lighting. Yes, and interoperability, that's actually one of the first words that comes up when you talk about smart lighting. And it's for cities a big barrier also to move into smart lighting. There's a hesitance also to say, okay, there's lots of different suppliers on the market, and often they have their own ecology, right? With different hardware and software that all works together, but not necessarily with hardware and software of other suppliers. And this poses a barrier also because cities are sometimes scared for lock-in or scared that other standards will come up and it won't work again. Now, there are open and interoperable standards that are coming up in the market. Things like Talk and Usify are coming up. And these kinds of standards, they help components talk to each other so that you can switch a luminaire from brand A with a luminaire from brand B, and it can talk to software of suppliers of brand C. Now, these standards are coming up, but they are not widespread yet. And because individual suppliers, of course, they build on their own ecosystem, which is understandable. But now cities, they have the power to create a breakthrough in the widespread adoption of open standards and interoperable systems. And that is simply by demanding them in tenders. Because if cities jointly ask for interoperable systems, then suppliers will be stimulated to offer it also on the market. And this will actually, this will lower the barrier for cities to enter the smart lighting market, to start with it, and for suppliers it can be beneficial because the market size increases. But cities hold the key here, which is an important message of the white paper. Now the last example I'd like to show, the last topic, is actually also about tendering, which is normally a very financial, technical thing, but it can also be about social issues. It can be about engaging citizens. And we have a very nice example from Albertslund, in where they founded a group of 42 lighting ambassadors and involved them in decision-making around modernization of urban lighting in their area. And they discussed things like payment models, dimming, smart city elements. And these insights were all incorporated in the tender. And they led to a framework agreement that gives citizens a say in further implementation of the project. So citizen engagement was there formally embedded in the tender. And that also moved market parties to, of course, include it in their own processes. So a very inspiring example of how to use tendering for engaging citizens. Okay, I'll close off now. Of course, in this presentation, I could not treat all the topics in the white paper, and for the white paper holds the same thing. In the white paper, we also cannot go in depth for all topics. But I added a helpful resources section and a very extensive reference list that you can use to click towards the sources directly, so you can dive in more deeply into the topics of your interest. I'd like to close off with thanking the working group, the experts, the LUCI board, the Smart Space Project, and of course all LUCI members who contributed to this paper. And I hope it will be of great help for cities in decision-making and possible steps into smart lighting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip, for this great presentation, summing up the highlights of the Smart Paper, A City's Guide to Smart Lighting. You brought up a lot of very interesting points, some of the key tips and recommendations and messages in the paper, as well as some of the ideas behind this paper. And so that is what we would like to discuss today with all of our panelists that we have here today. We are very lucky to have with us representatives of 4 cities. First off, we have Helene Qvist, the Smart City Consultant from the city of Albertslund. Hi, Helene. Then we have Rick van Stiphout, the Program Advisor of Light and Culture at the city of Eindhoven in the Netherlands. Hi, Rick. We have Zoltán Pap from BDK Budapest, the Managing Director of the utilities company that manages the public lighting. Hello, Zoltán.
Hello.
And we have Janko Bijk, the member of the Advisory Committee of the Urban Lighting for the city of Seoul. Hi, Bijk.
Hi.
Yes, and of course, Philip, who will be here in this panel with us as well. So thank you all for being here, and we are excited to talk about your insights because all of you were very much involved in the working group in this white paper, and as experts and as city representatives. And so let's get started. So perhaps first off, to get started, it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about your city's smart lighting context and why it was important for you to make this document. Maybe Rick, you could start.
Yes, thank you very much, Nikita, and thank you for the excellent presentation, Philip. Yes, Eindhoven, if I may say so, belongs to the front-runner cities, I guess, in regard to smart lighting and innovation in lighting in general. And we are already maybe a few steps ahead in thinking, which does not mean that on the practical level we always know what to do. Smart lighting is in a way also being a tightrope dancer, keeping the balance between many things, and Philip mentioned some of them. So yeah, that's the way we handle with this new way of approaching light for a better city, because in the end that's the goal. We try to receive a happy city in the end for the citizens. It's the city is made by people, so smart is in that way technology, but for the people and not for the sake of technology or innovation or political gain. It's a means, and that's in the same way also the big challenge to deal with.
Okay, and you did say that, in fact, actually, the city of Eindhoven was the initiator of this process in the LUCI network within the working groups we had. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, because being a front runner also means that you are able and maybe I should say lucky to see things first. And what we saw in the last 5 to maybe even 10 years, because we were also very early with adapting LED lighting, is that that the political playing field is not yet ready for that kind of moves, and also are entering the whole smart future from a different perspective. And that's why we thought this needs to be clarified in a broader sense, so other cities coming next, so to say, can have some major guidelines in order to also prepare their politicians, even the mayor or the organizations, the administrations of cities, to take the steps in the just direction, but also in the right order, because we learned from making mistakes, and there was a certain need or urge as representative in the LUCI network for me to make that work in a more broader sense, and that's the reason why I came up with this question for a white paper.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that was something that really resonated with quite a lot of the other cities in the network, and that's exactly why we did, in fact, constitute this working group. So yes, thank you. Maybe Zoltan, you could tell us also a little bit more about the context in Budapest and why you're in this working group and on this paper.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for being involved in this work, as it's a very important topic and future-oriented one. We see in Budapest that the sustainable environment and saving the earth is getting more and more crucial, and lighting can be part of that game, how to leave a better world to our children than we got from our parents. And I think through sustainable lighting, through energy saving, CO2 emission decrease, and having a better atmosphere life in the cities is quite crucial, and all this kind of smart city strategies cannot be realized without smart lighting in the future. So therefore we try to look ahead, and even though the technical setup and the circumstances are not ready enough or not good enough in Budapest yet, as Philip mentioned, we try to face the future and try to save much more energy and decrease the CO2 emission through LEDification, which was started several years ago on a pilot basis. And now we are waiting for some better financial time in order to make it possible working in fully function. Cities are different. Cities face the challenges of technological development, and we needed some guidelines, we needed some awareness raising, and the white paper was important for that respect, for the whys and hows, and of course give some guidance to the cities in this lovely network, which I am really honored to be member, and I think we can learn a lot from each other. And personally, me and Budapest benefited very much from LUCI. So this smart city white paper is also an investment for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, an investment for the future. That's a nice way to put it, definitely. Helene, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about Albertslund in Denmark.
Sure. Thank you. And I also have to start saying thank you for being part of this working group. It's always amazing to hear how other people or cities are working with this very difficult subject. And in Albertslund, we've been working also with switching to LEDs for 5-10 years, and it's always been very much about this a goal of reducing energy consumption, and of course it still is. But doing this whole switch and changing and getting a lot of our lighting, also indoor lighting, to sort of connect to sensors and all other kinds of goals for the city to improve everyday life, then all of a sudden we get all of this data, and just as Rick said, it actually puts a lot of difficult questions for the politicians and the leaders, the managers in the municipality. So for us, it's very important to see it as a whole, and to think that lighting is part of it also. But this whole interoperability to what we do in our buildings and our streets is very important to have this whole view of the why. So I think that's been one of the very important things that we've discussed, is actually the why, and that's also why I think it's important to say why not sometimes, because it's not the technology that we're doing it for, and so we have a lot of discussions in Albertslund of this why are we doing it, and each time we start up a new technology of some sort, we ask ourselves, what do the citizens gain in the end? And it's a long process, also to sort of get the politicians to understand this language when we talk about data and smart city in general. So we're getting there. It's getting easier and easier to have these conversations, but there is a lot of things that we have to have in mind and to take some decisions about on a higher level. So that's sort of my work to get this understanding out, and also to the citizens in the end. Why are we doing this? That's also why we have this huge dull lighting living lab. So citizens, also other municipalities, can come and see the systems and see the poles and the sensors, and to understand why are we actually putting all of this up. We try to communicate it as clear as we can to the citizens, so they know why we're monitoring to them. You know what I mean? But it is still a process, and it's still a very fluffy thing to many citizens, as to why we need to put up sensors, and also what we use the data for. So we have to be very careful, because they trust us in the municipality to use this data in the right way.
Okay, thank you, Helene. You brought up so many topics, so many interesting points that we will definitely go into further detail in the rest of this discussion. But before we move forward, I also like to ask Baek from Seoul in South Korea to tell us a little bit more about the situation there, and why a white paper like this is so important as well for a megalopolis like Seoul.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Actually, a case of Seoul is very interesting, because I still remember that in 2014 December, I got a request from the Seoul City because a middle school girl, who went to home after night school. She found that the street is full brightness. So she sent a mail to the city mayor. This is a energy waste or energy consumption because there is no people, no car. Why street is so bright with a huge energy consumption? So this is a very initial stage. So a city municipality, they try to find how to reduce energy, how to bring down the brightness. So this is the initial stage of smart lighting. So after that, a Seoul City tried to have several a pilot project, but they had good result or the bad result. So they don't know how to do it because they are very confused. Which one is good? Which one is not good? So they really want to have kind of a white paper. They would like to have a kind of a guidebook to have more better a progress of a smart lighting. So this is a situation of Korea and even a Seoul. So at this moment, Seoul is very fast moving toward to a smart lighting and the smart pole and IT devices, integration systems. So at this moment, most of a municipal they would like to know this is the right way or this is the right guide. So they really want to have some kind of white paper because. And when I have this discussion with Philip, I was very happy to discuss with him because he has very good knowledge, he has good ideas, and he is willing to listen to case of Korea and South Korea and Seoul. So this is what I feel, and I can say that this is very important a step to the city mayor and to the city municipality and the citizens. Yep.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, clearly, definitely something that will help city mayors and decision makers take their decisions, reinforce their thinking, or change their thinking. So that's what we hope that this white paper will do. Okay, so maybe talking a little bit about one of the unique aspects of this document that Philip already mentioned in his presentation before, and that you also brought up, Rick, Helene, and Zoltan and the bike as well, about the unique fact that it combines two aspects, the technological and technical aspect, as well as the social and societal aspect. And we also heard, as you said, smart lighting is more than just technology. Smart lighting is politics in technological form. What do you think about these statements? And why is it important to consider not just the technological and operational aspect, but also the societal and social implications when implementing or dealing or making decisions linked to smart lighting? Maybe we could start with you, Rick.
Yeah, and as far as I know, smart lighting for the first time is able to as a lighting form, is able to adapt to any situation in daily practice. So that also means, on the flip side of the coin, that it can also get biased. So if I'm looking to my own profession, more and more I move to the ethical side of the lighting scene. It's not about proper lighting anymore, but it's also about what does the city need? What do citizens want? What do they wish? How do they look upon their city as being a happy city in which they move comfortably and they go out without feeling looked after or even spionaged or something. Hey, I don't know if that's the right English word for it, but so this ethical aspect does become more important, and also it changes our way of acting as experts in the field. We need to go that direction. In that perspective, I really agree with Professor Verbeke and his quote in the presentation of Philip.
Yes. Thank you. And Philip, do you have anything to add to this? Because you were also very much in discussion with Professor Verbeke, and yeah.
Yes. Well, and this is actually it is maybe a point that is not always on the foreground. That actually the doing smart lighting is also a political act actually. But if you consider how influential public lighting is, if you think about the times before it was there, what what public space was inaccessible for normal people, let's say. And then you add this layer of sensing and light behavior also, and there are all kinds of choices that maybe normally, if you just look at it from a technological side, they remain implicit, and so you can make, let's say, collateral damage, right? And this is something that happens often. We see examples actually in technological system, big tech. It's now actually clear to most people that these systems, they are not just functional, right? But they also have a profound influence on how people behave socially. And that same thing happens in public space, actually. And especially in public space, you need to be extra careful because it's a space that people cannot avoid. So if you decide, for example, to start gathering data or to support certain kinds of traffic, there's always also another side that you're not, you might be inhibiting other kinds of traffic, or the data that you gather might go against what people find acceptable. And so it is really essential to keep always also the moral side in perspective when working on these kinds of systems. And but these are very abstract terms, but they always are very practical in the end. And citizens, we have example in the paper also of a protest from citizens against in that case, smart city system that where data was used for other means than it was intended for. And so it is really a thing that also boils down to practical things. A very interesting point, I think, and a very important point for cities to consider.
Thank you, Philip. Okay, I had a question. Okay, Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add a small thing to it, smart lighting, in fact, also touches upon an overarching question: who owns public space? Because we are influencing public space as a government because we own the public lighting, but we do not own the public space. We are the caretakers of public space, but with sensing coming in and all kinds of tracking and the public realm becoming smart, it also says something about ownership, and that's a question we need to address in the near future. Maybe it's the next phase of working with a smart, with a white paper. Who owns the public space, and how do we need to act in it as a governance?
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. And also, who owns the public space, and who is the public space for? It's for the citizens. And as Philip said, it's kind of a lot of abstract things which boil down to really practical points in the end, and how you kind of relate or convey this to the people that we are working for and that the public space is for. Helene, I wanted to get to you a little bit because you have spoken about this as well. If maybe you could go into a little bit more detail about how Albertslund tries to work with citizens on these smart lighting issues and convey these, try to kind of mitigate these collateral points.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just thinking the same thing, and one thing is the citizens, but also a subject we've brought up in LUCI the last years is also the whole biodiversity. So the lighting for the insects, the birds, and so on. So it's always interesting to ask, who are we doing it for? And in Albertslund, it's in it has been an eye-opener to have these conversations with the citizens, with the regular citizen just living in his or her house, asking about so when do they enjoy walking outside, and I mean, some people we ask, they want as low light as possible at all because they enjoy the night sky. And other people say they want full spotlight on the pavement all the way because otherwise they don't feel safe. So it's and obviously we can't meet all, but it is interesting to sort of have our data gathering on one side and then actually asking real people on the other side, and then sort of found out that well, one thing is not good without the other, you could say. And it is always interesting to see we have politicians who are very much want to help the helpless, or not helpless, well, sometimes, but homeless, I would have said, homeless people. And what about them? If we've seen all of these huge public spaces where they turn up the lighting so the homeless people can't sleep. So it is very much a political question quite often, actually, when it comes down to, so this public, this park or whatever, do we need it to be inviting people in during the nighttime or the opposite? So we have to have that discussion quite often.
Yeah, it's very much a question of political choices and and priorities. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think time is flying, so we'll move on to another equally important topic. Philip didn't mention it in his presentation right now for time, but one of the points addressed as well in the white paper is the importance of pilots and pilot sites. Maybe if all of you could tell us a little bit more about a pilot in your specific city and what you learned from it and why it was useful and important for you in the process of your smart lighting journey, let's say. Perhaps you could start with Bike.
Well, a pilot is, I think that this is absolutely a process to have a optimum lighting management. So on behalf of some city users and the suppliers and related stakeholders, because a pilot trigger, based on my experience, think about who and when and where and what and how. So this kind of six category. So they have a pilot stimulate the study about the technology and the citizens and the societal implication something. And actually, we have so many cases in a pilot project in Korea. So, but without a preparation, with the preparation, we have quite different result. So still there are still many issues. But without a pilot project, it's very difficult to find clear solution or support to fix or learn from the pilot result. So when I had discussion with Philip, and then when I read the white paper, so pilot can make a organized plan based on a study and a brainstorming. So refer to the space, a smart space white paper. People mentioned that I would like this mentioned because do not see it as an isolated activity, but as a step toward a subsequent something next things. So I think this is the most important implication for pilot project, because when you think about this as isolated activities, I'm afraid most of the cases will go to wrong way. So this is the most critical roadblock toward the smart lighting project with a longer decision making process, wrong decision making process. So pilot is kind of absolute process to have optimum smart lighting management. Yeah, this is my thinking. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Bike. Yeah, exactly. Do not see a pilot as an isolated process, but really as the first step towards what your plan will be and what you will be deploying in the future. Zoltan, maybe do you have something to add about pilot in Budapest?
Yeah.
And what you learned?
Thank you. I have actually two examples of pilots which were important for us. One of them is a success story, the other one is unfortunately not. We started LUDification around 8 years ago, and then before we entered into a bigger procurement, we tested all kinds of areas in Budapest, the green areas, the high main roads, the parks, bridges, even small central cities. And by doing this, we could elaborate a perfect mix of procurement process, and we have learned a lot on the technical side as well. And due to this piloting process, we could make the best mixture of, as Philip mentioned in his presentation, the price, energy saving, and warranty mixture of evaluation criteria. And then we entered into a 10,000 LED development, and it turned to be a nice success and a high quality service. This was a success story. The less successful story was started as a real good one, a future-oriented one. We, together with one of our owners, the electricity company, the other one is the municipality, we started a joint project of setting up 6 smart poles in a 1.5 kilometer area. And we could give all kinds of services like e-car charging, Wi-Fi, all kinds of sensors, even a technologically developed advertisement post on the lighting pole. And this worked perfectly, the smart lighting, from smart lighting point of view and from smart city point of view. But of course, we had to implement, as Philip also mentioned, we do not have measurement and do not have 24/7 access to electricity in lighting. We had to lay down a cable system which is combining the electricity and the IT solution, and we even thought that the financing could be partly helped, assisted by the new advertisement system. The project was nice, it was done, and people liked it very much, but unfortunately it was not deeply involved in the smart city strategy of the city. And the ownership of the electricity company, which was our partner, changed, and the new owner didn't see the major advantages of this project, so it has to be shut down. We have the smart poles, but the project is not working anymore because we needed the financing, and the city, as it was not incorporated in its strategy yet, couldn't finance it. So I think that the conclusion was that not being developed as an organic part of the smart city and smart lighting strategy of the city, this 2 years old success turned to be a failure at the end. So the city involvement it's a must actually.
Okay, thank you, Zoltan. Yes, so yeah, that's a perfect illustration, actually, of one of the points that Philip made, that we made in the white paper as well, about the fact that it's essential to embed it in the city strategy, and the fact that a pilot can also be a way for cities to kind of create an ecosystem around all the players needed on smart lighting to really make it kind of sustainable in the future. Because, yeah, as we know, cities have so many different actors that they have to work with, and companies change, and suppliers change. And so, yeah, thank you for that very practical example of some of the implications that you have to deal with. Helene, maybe if you'd like to say a little bit about, if you have something to say about a pilot and what you learned.
For us, we've actually learned a lot. Well, one thing is what we've learned from the technologies and what we've tested. There is much to say about that as well. But actually, I think it's important to stress how much we've learned on sort of within the municipality, because the more smarter it gets, in my opinion, the more data you get, at least, you need other competencies within the municipality. You need people who understands privacy issues, how to use data from one system to another, and the whole operability issue and ownership of data. You need different skill sets within the municipalities, at least than what we've had before, because it sort of crosses from one sector to another when you start working with data. At least if you should use the data for something good, for something useful, but that again, it has the flip side as well. So you really need to know what you're doing. So these pilots have showed us what we need to have of these skill sets in the municipality, and that can be difficult to show politicians and leaders who are not used to working within the field. So it comes down to communicating very much why we're doing this and what do we need to make sure that we're doing it properly. So we've learned a lot from that, doing pilots.
Okay. Yes, thank you. And exactly, that's true about new skill sets and also about dealing with data. That was clearly also one of the topics that is very much addressed in the white paper, and we have some kind of suggestions as well on how cities can take some steps to deal with the data implications of such smart lighting projects through digital boards and whatnot. But maybe I will let Rick also talk a little bit about a pilot project in Eindhoven and what you learned as well.
Yes, I guess more in general speaking, we all can know from the theoretical framework in regard to smart lighting that it's very promising, and it offers a lot of opportunities and possibilities. But in the end, the proof is always in the pudding. So you need to start, let's say, playing with it even, and set your goals not too far away. So think big. Smart lighting allows us to think big, but start small. And if I'm looking back to a pilot we already did in 2014 on Stripe S as part of the Interreg 4C BLIS project, we eventually lit a small park, the Tower Alley in the Stripe S area, with lighting which already was smart at that moment. It was custom made for us by the Schreder company. We even were awarded the Auralia Award for extensive durability in the project and so on. But in the end, we didn't know how to deal with the system. So let's be honest about it. We not only thought big, but we also wanted to start big. It's something we are not afraid of in Eindhoven because we're an innovative region and we are focused on technology, design, and knowledge. So we merge those things. But also then you can start, maybe it's somehow too big. And it's only now when we do this same exercise in the pub area in the inner city, downtown, that we know how to deal with the system once it is installed. But it took us 7 years, so to say. Of course, we did a lot of other things also on the smart lighting scene. Philip mentioned one, the traffic project, which turns out successfully. But there we started small, just one goal, measuring traffic through the lighting system and the smart grid already being available. But we learned from 2014, and I think I'm really convinced that we don't make the same mistakes now in the downtown area. So that's the lesson learned. Start small, but don't avoid to think big, because it has a lot of opportunities and smart lighting is extremely promising.
Thank you, Rick. So yes, think big, but start small. Great advice. Before we move on to the next topic, Philip, let me know in case you have anything to add or any reflections based on some of the comments that we heard today. Okay. Well, then I'm going to get back to you again, because one of the really important points that you mentioned in your presentation and also in the white paper is interoperability. It's really a key word. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that, and elaborate on that, and why it's such a crucial issue for cities?
Yes. So interoperability is, let's say, if we discuss it in the most simple form, the ability to exchange elements like hardware, like luminaires or controllers, from one brand with those same kinds of elements from another one, and that they function plug and play, let's say, ideally. And this very simple fact is actually now presenting a very important barrier also for cities to engage in smart lighting, because interoperability is not the case actually, well, in many cases currently, because of course suppliers have their own ecosystems of different kinds of hardware and software that work very well together, but not with those same ecosystems from other suppliers. And if you look at it from a city's perspective, this can be let's say unattractive, because once you go into one ecosystem, you might be afraid to be locked into this ecosystem. And it can have all kinds of advantages, but also disadvantages. And you see that in other areas, standard really helps for a specific kind of technology to take off. So when one element of interoperability is on the network layer, right? So how these devices talk to each other. Now, if in the home we have something like Wi-Fi or something like that, that is like a common way of communicating for many different devices, and so that really helps. So this is an analogy, right? With in smart lighting, you also have that kind of things. Actually, you have royalty-free open standards that are coming up, like Talk or Usify. Yeah, but they are not common yet, and cities are awaiting, maybe also because of interoperability problems. But cities also have the key to change and to create a breakthrough, because in the end, cities can ask for it. The only thing is it needs joint action for it to happen. If it's asked often enough, then at one point, of course, suppliers will be stimulated also to adopt these kinds of standards, which will be beneficial for, I guess, the whole market, because there's more people entering, so a larger market, which is also good for suppliers. So, yeah, it's actually a very important topic in smart lighting.
Yes, and as you pointed out as well, that one of the really one of the most powerful tools that cities have is tendering, to kind of ask for greater interoperability to their suppliers. I was wondering if any of the cities here have any comments to add regarding this, some practical experiences or opinions related to this issue. Helene, and then we'll give the floor to Zoltan. So Helene, go ahead.
Well, it's just a positive reflection, because a lot of things, at least in Denmark, have happened, and then we're starting to see how, because so many municipalities have exactly as Philip's saying, ask for these open standards or at least open APIs so we can connect and so on. So the market has changed a lot during the last 5 years in Denmark, and it's switching a lot. So we're moving away from these very very closed systems. Of course, they're still there, but we've seen changes in the market, and it's very much because also small municipalities around Denmark have sort of gone together and making these networks, and part of what we've been doing in these networks is asking these questions to the market. Because the more of us going together and asking the same things, just as Philip mentioned, then the faster this will go. So it's very positive, but it is very clear that the cities have to do this. They hold the key.
Yes, cities are in the driver's seat. Yes, go ahead. Zoltan, you had a comment you wanted to add. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I think that's the key issue, that the cities have to sit in the driver's seat. Without an IT infrastructure which can be run by the cities based on an interoperability and open protocol system, it could be very dangerous for a city, because if it's closed, they can stuck into one IT provider, and then if they want to change, they cannot. It costs a lot of money. On the other hand, no other service providers can connect themselves to the system. So it's very important to avoid for the city being defenseless, because it can be a hinder for involving new service providers, and of course it would harm the whole system.
Thank you, Zoltan. Yes, yeah, it's yes. I see, Rick, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also saw bike by the way, but I wanted to add to this that this also is linked up to the who owns the public space question. Once you allow vendor lock-ins, conscious or unconscious, you in the end are heading to exclusion from possibilities and maybe even exclusion from of people. It can be even in the far future become an impulse for discrimination. So looking from that angle, you have to constantly repeat this question: who owns public space, and how does this link up to all the actions you have to take, including tendering? You need to avoid, in any case, a vendor lock-in.
Yeah, a key point for all cities. And how to ensure a future-proof system, because that's really the point of what you're trying to do as well. Take the best decisions you can for your city for the future. So, thank you. Bike, you also had your hand raised, I believe. Did you want to add a point?
Actually, interoperability is such a critical issue in Korea, because after many times our pilot project, the city municipality found that this is very nice product, nice solution, but they have many suppliers. So they have many discussion with this supplier to supplier. So one of the city municipality they told us that this is smart lighting is a mess. When they use just a simple LED, they don't need to discuss deep discussion, and they don't talk about interoperability. But when they try to use smart system, they have to think about different terminology. It's just like a protocol, just like a network, just like communication, just like software. So many municipality, most of still they don't like this kind of a terminology, and that they have to talk with a separate supplier. So at this moment, Seoul City and the Korea government, they try to make some common network common software with the free, let's say open protocol, we just call that. So without this one, as Philip mentioned, as Rick mentions, it's going to be very, very difficult. Is not allowed to be by city municipality, because interoperability is the key way to go for a smart line. And without this one, is going to be a mess. Yeah, I think, based on my experience.
Okay, thank you, Bike. Yeah, so clearly we're all agreed on the essential aspect of interoperability. Okay, so time has been flying by, and we just have a few minutes left for the discussion if we want to have some time for question answers with the audience. So if none of you have any more comments to add, I will start with the wrap-up question, the last question to wrap up our conversation. So just to wrap up all the ideas here and to help our audience, could you tell us what is the one key tip that you would like to give cities who are embarking on or have embarked on smart lighting initiatives? So maybe we can start with Joltan. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, the most important advice, takeaways from the city point of view, and as a service provider from my point of view as well, make the smart lighting as part of the city's smart city strategy and establish the relevant infrastructure to that. So you have to coordinate the development of the lighting infrastructure according to the needs of smart lighting, and you have to allocate the financial resources in advance with a long-term thinking. In case you don't have yet the financial resources, think ahead and make the luminaires and the LEDification future smart ready, at least. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, long-term thinking and embedding strategy. Thank you, Deltan. Rick, if you have, what is your one tip?
Yeah, my tip would be, if you are not yet into smart lighting, start exploring it, and because it will be the next step in public lighting. Don't be afraid of it, but also don't be naive. And the other thing I already said, think big. Allow yourself to think big, also on the political field. But please start small and explore step by step what you need and what you want and what is good for society. Because in the end, smart lighting is not there to help companies grow, but it's only there to help society flourish and make better, more happy cities.
Thank you, Rick. Bike, what is your one tip?
Well, just like Rick mentioned, I almost agree with Rick, because start small. Yeah, this is very important. We just call it a pilot project, but I'd like to add one more column that so we need to, based on my experience, we need to have a deep dive session with a professional, including suppliers and stakeholders, and as much as possible. So while communicating with them, we can have more information for the decision making. But recently I have very good tip for the friends in LUCI, because while I'm reading the smart space white paper, just it's a kind of tip for a shortcut for takeaway. So read smart space white paper and then share with the stakeholders. Then it's going to be very easy to communicate with them, and it's very good to stimulate them to decision making properly. Yep, this is my tip for the my friend in LUCI.
Thank you, Bike. And moving on to Helen, what is your one tip?
Well, it's funny enough, very much alike what the other says, and I think it all comes down to also the why, which is emphasized in this white paper. Why are we doing it? So it's basically, as the other says, if you start small and ask yourself, why are we doing it? Then that's a good way to start, and it'll get bigger and bigger in the city, because it will, I guess, go that way. But that doesn't mean we don't have to stop once in a while asking ourselves, why are we doing it? So that's important to remember.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Ask why and ask the right questions as well. That's what you all are saying as well, and that's what we try to highlight in the white paper too. Philip, maybe if you would like to leave off also with a final key tip for cities.
Of course. Well, one obvious one would be to dive into the white paper and to read it and make it your own and start actively involved with those questions, why and how. And maybe another one also, work together with other cities, because one thing that for me was very nice to notice in this process of making the white paper, that working together on it really brought the quality to a very high level. And as we've seen, by working together, we also envision that you can really make a difference as cities. So I think the smart lighting is also something that requires joint action of cities, and this is an opportunity also to bring the whole field further, one step further, by joint action amongst cities. So that would be the wish and the tip, maybe.
Thank you, Philip. Yes, indeed, that is true. I mean, especially in this ever-evolving domain of smart lighting, where things are changing so much and cities have so many questions. Yeah, working together and discussing together to help each other is the way forward. And we hope that through the white paper and through working together in LUCI, that's what will happen. Zoltan, I see you have something to add. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Before we go ahead for the next session, as the doyen of this group, I would like to thank you very much for Philip for this excellent work and for the initiative of LUCI, because I think as a fully well-based, theoretically and practically well-based paper, which all kinds of cities on different levels of development, different technical and ethical approach can find their own takeaways from this paper. So it was a great initiative, and thank you, Philip. It was very, very well done.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you, Philip, and thank you all for contributing your valuable time and your perspectives, not just to the paper, but also to this session. So thank you very much. And now let's see if we have some questions from the audience. Thank you. Again. Okay, yes. And so let's bring our panelists up on the screen so you can see them. And maybe if you could just give them all a big round of applause for their insights. And thank you, all of you. So thank you very much, everyone. And I hope that this has given everyone here some things to think about, and maybe you have some questions. I also know there are quite a few people in the online audience who are also part of this working group. So Ollie, Conrad, and everyone, feel free to ask your questions from wherever you are. So let me know if there are any questions in the audience, in the room at the moment. Does anyone have one? Okay, well, for the moment, we have one from online then. So it's a question about data and maybe more of a comment as well. So your reactions on that would be good. Who owns the data? If convincing citizens about the advantages, what they can do with it, you create a stronger support base. And you can do that when you convince citizens. It is done with tax money, so having the users take part in the decision-making can make smart lighting be more useful. So what is your opinion, I think, on having users and citizens take part in the decision-making in such projects? Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for this question. And to start with, I think it's not just about tax money anymore. There are many, even non-lighting companies that are very eager to invest a lot in urban smart lighting, because it gives them access to the public space and the things that happen in it through dedicated sensors and activators. There's a great deal, I guess, of commercial interest in the use of smart lighting, So in addition to advantages, in the end, there are also, I guess, clear disadvantages for the citizens. Although we are not able and still far from each to foresee what those disadvantages will be. But that includes also a certain warning for us all to think twice in many occasions. But in the end, it's clear for me that social support is most important, starting with the confidence that governments will not abandon their citizens and that we understand what we as municipal organizations have to do. It's our responsibility, so to say, with regard to the public space, but with an emphasis on public and data owned by the people. Essential data should remain owned by the people in all occasions, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Does anyone else in the panel have something to add to that? Okay, nope. I don't think so. Okay, so we have, we don't have a whole lot of time for questions. So if you do, I'm just checking the audience if there are any questions in the room. Yes, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation and the white paper. It looks really exciting, and I'm looking forward to read it as well. I wanted to ask you, if we think about smart lighting, I can think of three distinct directions of benefits that it can bring. I would define them first, probably the energy efficiency. The second is the improved maintenance, because you have the real-time data. And the third one is opening up the door to other smart city applications. I was curious, especially for the city representatives, if you're thinking about your city, which of the three, if you absolutely had to choose one of them, which would you say would be the most important?
Okay, so which city representative would like to have a go at that one? Bike, go ahead, and then we'll pass on to Helene. Yeah. And
this is a very practical question that we have encountered today. Actually, I had a meeting with the South City today for this agenda. The single number one is energy saving, is absolutely, and number two is maintenance. But 2 to 3 years back, energy saving is number one, and the maintenance is number two, and the interoperability is number three. But nowadays, there's some more ranking change. So city municipalities, they're looking for more advanced interoperability instead of maintenance, because they're sure that maintenance is very safe, stabilized. So they're looking for the more advanced thinking to smart city. So is more important, but like I said, number one is absolutely energy saving. Yeah, this is pure from Seoul City and many cities in Korea.
Thank you, Baik. Helene, you had your hand up to say something.
It's just to add to that, for our people actually maintaining the lighting and setting up the lighting, it would be the same, just as Baik says, for sure. But what I find interesting is that because the smart lighting has a lot of opportunities as well, when you pick it up with sensors and so on, then all of a sudden you sort of get new people involved, and they would have different points of views. So it's kind of a tricky answer, but I would say it depends very much who you're asking. But I would have to say energy savings as well when you ask or people who are actually maintaining the lighting and switching to LEDs and so on.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty clear. Zoltan, you also had something to say here.
Yes, I'm fully agree with Helene and Mike. Energy saving is the most important, and especially if you are a city which is not yet too much developed in smart city aspects. But I also agree with Mike that the maintenance is quite stable. Of course, in the notifications process in the first years, maintenance is almost not too much, almost nothing extra cost. bring, but interoperability is very, very important. But of course, if you are a city if you represent a city which is not yet developed, maintenance is quite important, because in the first years it can decrease the maintenance cost. But I agree, energy saving, interoperability, and maintenance.
Okay, yeah, we seem to come to a common agreement on those things. Does anyone have anything else to add? Philip? No? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, actually, yes. The white paper actually sums up a palette of reasons or benefits that might come from smart lighting, and also disadvantages actually. And the thing is, of course, you can have a prime reason to step into it, but often the other aspects, the other impacts that smart lighting can have will not, let's say, disappear from making a choice. So that's also a message from the white paper, is to keep your view broad when you're working on it, because some technical elements of the system might have social implications. And so that's also one. Of course, there are drivers that are on the foreground, but one of the points is also to keep this wide view and keep also the other ways of smart lighting to have impact in perspective.
Yeah, thank you. And that is indeed what we've tried to do in this white paper, to bring together these different perspectives and these different important elements. Okay, yes, there's another question, I believe.
We're going to have another meta moment, just to connect to our online people. Life from Albertslund, who many of you may know, always asks good questions. Doesn't quite have a question, but he does want to say hi to Rick, and he says, better and more happy cities. That was great that you said that, Rick, earlier. So just wanted to add that in.
Thanks.
And hello, Life from here in Tartu.
I don't even know where to look, actually. It's so weird. Okay, we also have another question from online, in fact. And the question is, we will have autonomous driving cars in the future. In fact, it's already there. What if the lighting becomes that smart and also becomes autonomous? What is your opinion on that? So, who would like to take that question? Zoltan, go ahead.
Well, yes, it's a question of 5G development. It is important. Autonomous cars are a future question. It has started to come. But I think in this respect, lighting is not playing such a big role. It's actually the lampposts which are most important, because it can have the 5G cabinets most practically in the central cities, where these 5G cabinets should be approximately 150 meters from each other. And of course, the light poles are natural holders for these boxes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I see Rick and then Philip. Go ahead, Rick, I suppose. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nikita. I guess this question links perfectly up to the presentation of Philip, in which he divides smart lighting in a technological field and a social field. Of course, lighting will become that smart that it will act autonomously if we want to. And that's the social side of it. I guess we always need to think twice, think over and over again if we wish lighting to become autonomous. And that goes for many smart devices, smart developments in society. There's a technological side which always proves that things can, but do we also want them on the societal side? And that's exactly what also is pointed out in this white paper, this division, and to be and remain aware of our human influence on technology. We always can decide it's not clever to do things unless we know that it's possible.
Yes, thank you, Rick. Okay, I'm going to give the floor to Philip a little bit to answer the question as well. And since we're running out of time, that will be almost the last remark, let's say. Go ahead, Philip.
All right. So I'd like to add another perspective to this. So one of the topics in the white paper is also how external trends might have an influence on the lighting, smart lighting. And I guess this one is a bit further reaching, but when lots of light in the city is now tailored towards car traffic, right? And once cars start to become autonomous, actually the whole function of street lighting may change, and the kinds of traffic you'd like to support might change. So this is a bit further reaching, but if we talk about autonomous driving, we are looking far into the future. So this is one of the, again, one of those things that might change public lighting very significantly. And and it's not the answer of what it's going to be like then, but pointing out how also trends beyond or besides smart lighting can have such a big influence on smart lighting in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Philip. Okay, so I would just like to say thank you to everyone. Unfortunately, we have to move on with the next sessions. So I was very happy to have all of you here with us online to respond to all of these questions. And I do hope that, well, if this had been a regular LUCI event, I would have said keep on having these conversations in the coffee breaks and in the days ahead with the panelists. But, well, you'll just have to do that online now. Yes, so thank you very much, and we hope that all of this has kind of whetted your curiosity for this white paper, The City's Guide to Smart Lighting, that will be out in the next few weeks. So thank you everyone.
Great, now is time for, as my Swedish friend might say, a fika, or a coffee break. Yes.
Most important thing in the day.
And I want to remind you to take part in the lantern making workshop. It is actually pretty fun. I started one myself. And also that networking breaks, coffee breaks, are an opportunity to meet people you don't know. So introduce yourself to someone you don't know. Please be back at 1:15 for the open conference sessions. These will take place in 2 separate rooms. These are the organized parallel tracks that you'll see in the schedule, so you can figure out which ones you would like to attend. So it's in this current room and the room across the hall.
Well, CJ, with the 24-hour system, I think it's 3:15 you should be here, not 1:15.
Oh, right.
It's hard.
It's really hard to be an American.
There's also a Tava track where the workshop heads will present themselves and the works they do. Both me and CJ will be there, and also Veronica, hopefully. And after that, you should all be back here at 4:30
yes,
for the LUCI General Assembly, which is very important at 4:30. So now it's fika time, coffee and cookies.